My wife tried to catfish me to test my loyalty. I figured it out and built a fake affair just to watch her watch me fall. Every message she sent from her burner account, I answered with a script of my own. It was a cold war in our living room, and neither of us blinked first, until I did something she never saw coming. I wasn't expecting anything strange that Wednesday night, just wrapped up a client call, reheating some leftover lasagna, and killing time on my phone. That's when I saw the message. Short, flirty, and somehow too personal. Hey, saw your post about that old record player. Love guys who still appreciate the classics. You always this charming or just when you're spinning vinyl? What caught me off guard wasn't just the tone, it was the accuracy. I'd only mentioned my vintage record player once in a passing conversation at a neighborhood cookout. That wasn't public. Not on any social platform, not even in group texts. The message came from someone I didn't recognize. Name didn't ring a bell, no mutuals, no clear connection, but they seemed to know a lot about me, my taste in music, favorite films, even that I prefer lemon over chocolate cake. Details I've never exactly shouted from rooftops. At first I thought maybe it was a joke. Someone from work? An old friend pulling a prank? I showed the messages to my coworker Mike during lunch the next day. He leaned back and gave me a look. Man, whoever this is, either they're stalking you hard, or they know you way too well. That was when the first cold twist hit my gut. Things got weirder. I started noticing how Jenna, my wife, would glance at my phone whenever it buzzed. Not overly suspicious, just attentive, like she was waiting for something. When I casually mentioned the odd messages to see how she'd react, she laughed, a bit too loud, a bit too rehearsed, and said, "Oh, so you've got secret admirers now? Should I be jealous?" The tone was playful, but her eyes said otherwise. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling. I checked our shared laptop, something we rarely use anymore. In the browser history, buried between recipe sites and shopping tabs, was a thread titled, "How to Test If Your Husband is Loyal Without Him Knowing." I didn't sleep well after that. The next day, I set out to confirm what my gut already knew. I checked the activity logs on our home Wi-Fi, an old habit from my IT days. There it was. The same device that normally streamed Jenna's shows had been used to create a burner email just days before the first message arrived. Same login times, same network signature. It was her. But instead of confronting Jenna, I did something else. I created a trap of my own. A fake woman, confident, mysterious, designed to tap into every insecurity Jenna's ever hinted at. I gave her just enough of a voice. Smart, slightly cocky. And then, tonight, sent the first message straight to that anonymous account that had been messaging me. It read, "Thanks for keeping him warm for me. He's always been good at entertaining lonely girls. If she wanted a game, I'd play. Only now it wouldn't go the way she planned." The response came fast. "Who is this?" Just 3 words. Crisp, punctuated. No emojis, no pretense. I imagined Jenna sitting in the next room, phone gripped like a lifeline, staring at the message she wasn't supposed to receive. Not like that. Not from someone else. I could almost hear the blood rushing in her ears. My heart pounded too, not from guilt. I wasn't cheating, but from the sheer absurdity of what we were doing to each other. We weren't in a marriage anymore. We were 2 people building booby traps inside the same house. I waited a few hours before replying from Natalie. "Let's just say you're not the only one playing pretend." That night, Jenna was quiet. Too quiet. We watched a movie together. Or rather, it played in the background while we both pretended not to be dissecting each other's expressions. I watched her eyes flicker to her phone, then to me, then back again. I stirred my drink and kept my face unreadable. She asked if I was seeing someone from work. Joking, sort of. "No," I said. "Are you?" She laughed like it was nothing. But the laugh cracked at the edges. The next morning I found her in the kitchen early, tapping through her messages with that forced casualness of someone trying not to look like they're hiding something. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't touch her eyes. That's when I noticed she'd deleted her burner profile, or at least renamed it. A new handle, new picture, same game. She was rearming, repositioning her play. I could have ended it there, confronted her, demanded an explanation, but I wasn't ready. I needed to know why. Why do you test someone who's done nothing wrong? Why poison your own well just to see if it's clean? Later that week, I let Natalie lean in harder. I crafted a voice Jenna couldn't ignore. Not seductive, but dangerous. Confident, unbothered. A woman who didn't have to beg for attention. I sent another message. "He told me you're insecure, that you've been acting strange lately. He doesn't blame you, just thinks you're unraveling." I half expected Jenna to throw something at the wall that night, but she didn't. Instead, she started getting nicer, touchier, offering me coffee in the mornings, kissing me goodnight, the way she used to. And I hated how much that made me miss her, because that's the sickness of it. I still loved her, but I also didn't trust her anymore. Not with my heart, not even with my inbox. This wasn't a relationship. This was espionage. The final trigger came on Friday. She left her laptop open while running errands. My hands hovered over the keys, every instinct screaming to look away. I didn't. There it was. A folder titled simply, Test. Inside, screenshots. Of our texts. Of my playlists. Even of me sitting on the couch. Photos taken from the hallway when I wasn't looking. She'd been logging me, studying me, like I was the stranger, like I wasn't her husband but a case file. So I did what any sane man in an insane house would do. I opened a blank document and typed one sentence. Just one. then left it on the screen. I know. She hasn't mentioned it yet, but she will. But it took her 2 days. 2 days of acting normal, of folded laundry and awkward forehead kisses. 2 days of pretending she hadn't seen the message on her laptop. The simple sentence I'd left like a loaded gun on the kitchen table. I know. Then, Sunday night, as I was brushing my teeth, she appeared in the doorway. You left something on my computer, she said, soft but deliberate. I met her eyes in the mirror. Did I? She didn't blink. What do you think you know? Her tone was too calm. That scared me more than if she'd screamed. I wiped my mouth and turned to face her, heart pounding behind my ribs like it was trying to break out and run. That you've been messaging me, I said, pretending to be someone else. She stared for a second, then let out this breath, half relief, half exhaustion. It was a mistake. That's what she called it. Not betrayal, not manipulation, just a mistake. I didn't respond, just walked past her and sat on the edge of the bed. She followed, hovering like she couldn't tell if I was about to yell or disappear. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she continued. I needed to know. Know what? I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. If I'd cheat? Silence. If I'd fall for a stranger while my wife was busy surveilling me like I'm her ex-con roommate? Her eyes welled, but I wasn't buying it. This wasn't regret. It was damage control. It wasn't about cheating, she finally said. Not really. It was about if you'd notice. If you'd even see me. Lately you've felt far away. And your plan was to catfish your husband into noticing you? I just wanted to understand how you'd respond. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Not from humor, but from disbelief. She wanted data. On her own marriage. Like I was a lab rat wearing a wedding band. She looked so small, standing there in her robe, arms crossed like armor. I wanted to be angry, but what I felt was worse. I felt numb. This wasn't a betrayal built on passion or even hate. It was built on fear, mistrust, the quiet erosion of faith. I stood up. She reached for my arm, but I pulled away, gentle but firm. No more pretending, Jenna, I said. You wanted a reaction? Fine, you've got one coming. That night I logged into Natalie's account one last time. I typed a message knowing she'd read it from whatever shadow inbox she was still running. I lied too. He knew from the start. He was just curious how deep you'd dig before you hit bottom. Then I logged out and deleted everything. I didn't confront her again. I didn't need to. The next move was hers. But whatever she chose, I wasn't playing anymore. I went to bed that night with my back to her, feeling a space between us I couldn't name. Not anger, not betrayal, something colder, like a door closing from the inside, and I wasn't sure either of us still had the key. The next morning she made pancakes. Whipped cream, cut strawberries, like we were starring in a commercial for a marriage that hadn't quietly detonated overnight. Thought you might want something special today, she said, sliding a plate in front of me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I looked at the syrup bottle, trying to process just how surreal the performance had become. This was our new reality, a polite horror show staged with butter knives and ceramic plates. Thanks, I muttered. I didn't touch the food. She sat across from me, fingers curled around her coffee mug, watching, measuring. The silence between us was no longer neutral. It buzzed with the weight of everything unspoken. I could feel her scanning for a crack in my composure, a tell. Finally I said, So what now? She flinched. Not visibly, not dramatically. Just a flicker of something behind her eyes, like she'd hoped we'd skip this part, the part where truth leaves bruises. I don't know, she said. I thought you were going to scream. Leave. I don't know what I expected. Maybe you thought I'd confess, I said. Admit to something I didn't do. Give you a reason to hate me. A clean ending. She looked down. I thought, if you responded, maybe it meant there was already a crack. There wasn't, I said. But now there is. She swallowed hard. Her voice trembled. I didn't mean to hurt you. I felt like you were slipping away and I didn't know how to reach you. So you pretended to be someone else. To reach your husband. That's not connection, Jenna. That's entrapment. I was scared, she whispered. Everyone I know who stayed blind got cheated on. Left. Humiliated. I thought if I could just see where you stood. You saw, I interrupted. And instead of finding betrayal, you created it. She nodded slowly, her mouth pressed into a tight line. The weight of her own logic was finally sinking in, but it was too late for simple understanding to matter. What hurt most wasn't the lie. It was what the lie said about how she saw me. Then she said something I didn't expect. Do you love me? She asked. Still? It was a sucker punch. Because I did. Or I had. Or maybe I loved the version of her who didn't need to play detective to feel safe beside me. The version who believed in us without needing proof. I didn't answer right away. I didn't know how. She wiped at her cheek with the sleeve of her sweater. I'm sorry, I know that doesn't fix anything. No, I said. But it's a start. And I meant it. Sort of. But trust? That wasn't something pancakes and tears could rebuild. That was going to take something raw, honest, painful, something real. And I wasn't sure she had that left in her, or if I had it left to give. We were both standing in the ruins of something we built with love and ruined with doubt. And in that moment, I didn't know whether to reach for her or walk away from what we'd both broken. We didn't talk about it for days after that. Not really. Surface words, yes. Did you grab the mail? We need eggs. But nothing that scraped beneath. We existed in this bizarre limbo where everything looked normal if you didn't stare too long. Like a painting you realize too late is slightly off. I started sleeping later. She started leaving earlier. We circled each other in our own home like strangers who shared too much history to be comfortable with silence. Then one night I heard her crying in the shower. Not sobbing, not loud enough to be dramatic, just soft, hiccuped breaths. I stood outside the door, hand resting on the knob, unsure if I was supposed to go in or leave her to the privacy of her guilt. I didn't go in. Because here's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. Once it enters the room, everything changes. Not just how you see them, but how you see yourself around them. Every glance feels like theater. Every touch feels rehearsed. So I started keeping a journal. Nothing poetic, just thoughts, observations, patterns. Tuesday. She double-checked my phone screen when she thought I wasn't looking. Wednesday. She asked if I was still wearing my wedding ring out of habit. Thursday. She didn't come to bed. Friday is when it finally cracked. We were having dinner, takeout, Chinese, something easy. She was poking at her lo mein like it was a dissection. I had just poured wine. She looked up and said, "If you want to leave, I won't stop you." My fork paused midair. "Is that what you want?" I asked. She shook her head, eyes wet but steady. "I want to fix it, but I don't think I can fix you. I don't think I should have to." I nodded, not because I agreed, but because that was the first honest thing either of us had said in days. "You know what hurts most?" I said, setting down my glass. "Not the lie, not the manipulation. It's that you didn't come to me as you. You came to me as someone else, because you didn't think you were enough to ask the question." She didn't argue, didn't defend, just closed her eyes and said, "I didn't recognize myself either." There it was, the quiet, ugly truth. She didn't trust me because she didn't trust herself anymore. Because somewhere between married life and late-night stories from her bitter friends, she forgot who we were. And maybe I did too. We didn't finish dinner. Instead, we sat in silence long after the food turned cold. That night, she slept on the couch. Not because I asked her to, but because she finally understood that some distance can't be closed with apologies. Some bridges burn quietly without flame, just heat and ash. The next morning, I found her note on the counter. Not a dramatic letter, just a square of paper folded once. My name on the front in lowercase letters like she used to write when we passed each other notes in college. Going to stay with Amanda for a few days. Please don't take this as running away. I just need space to figure out who I am without all the noise. J. Amanda. Of course. The same Amanda who'd spent the past 2 years filling Jenna's head with every worst-case scenario divorce Reddit ever birthed. I wasn't surprised, just tired. I made coffee and stared at the chair she usually sat in. Empty, tucked in too neatly. The silence felt heavier without her in it, which messed with me more than I'd like to admit. Because as much as I resented what she'd done, I missed her. Not the version of her who schemed, but the version who once woke me up at 3 a.m. just to slow dance barefoot in the kitchen because our song came on the radio. Was that still in her? Or had we both buried it under layers of doubt, pride, and secondhand bitterness? By noon, I'd opened the folder on my laptop labeled Test Copy. Yes, I'd made one. Not because I needed proof, but because I needed to remember, to face it again with sober eyes. Screenshots. Fake usernames. Draft messages she never sent. Some more brutal than the ones I'd received. But what stopped me cold was the spreadsheet. Yes, a literal spreadsheet. Titled, Behavior Patterns 3 Weeks. It had columns, dates, timestamps, descriptions of my actions. When I left the house, when I laughed at my phone, whether I seemed distracted. She'd color-coded it. Green meant faithful, yellow, possible emotional drift, red, potential infidelity. There were 3 reds, all marked on days I'd stayed late at work or forgot to respond to a text. My chest tightened. Not from rage. From the horrifying clarity that the woman I married had been trying to scientifically verify my betrayal. She hadn't been afraid of losing me. She'd already decided she had, and in some twisted way, she just wanted to be right. I closed the file, deleted the copy, sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking wall clock. Sounds I never noticed until they were the only voices left. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. Not out of anger, not even sadness, just preservation. Because once someone studies you like a suspect, it's hard to ever feel like a partner again. She came back on Sunday evening. No warning, no call, just the sound of keys in the door and the soft clatter of her suitcase wheels on the floor. I was on the couch, lights off, TV on low, not really watching anything, just letting sound fill the spaces I'd been avoiding all weekend. She stood in the doorway for a full minute before speaking. "I didn't know if you'd be here," she said quietly. "Where else would I be?" That landed heavier than I meant it to. She winced, then stepped inside like the apartment had changed shape without her in it. Maybe it had. I certainly had. She looked exhausted. Not just tired, but wrung out. The kind of fatigue you wear in your shoulders when you've been carrying the weight of your own choices and don't know where to set them down. "I didn't expect the spreadsheet to hurt you that much," she said. "You kept logs, Jenna. Color-coded logs. Like I was some corporate liability being monitored." Her voice cracked. "I know, it was stupid. Amanda said—" "Don't," I cut in. "Don't say her name like it's an excuse. This wasn't Amanda's marriage to destroy. It was ours." She sat down across from me, barely breathing. I thought, if I could see it coming, it wouldn't blindside me. That maybe I'd feel less stupid. Safer. "But that's the thing," I said, trying not to sound as hollow as I felt. "You didn't protect us, you just confirmed your own fears. You made sure there was no version of this where you didn't feel betrayed, even if I never did anything wrong. Silence. I didn't trust you, she whispered, because I didn't trust what love turns into when it gets quiet. I thought maybe you stopped seeing me. I never stopped, I said. I just didn't realize I had to prove it in Morse code every morning. She let out a shaky breath. I miss you. I miss us. I looked at her, and for the first time I didn't feel anger. I felt grief. Deep, still grief for something that wasn't fully gone, but wasn't fully here either. I don't know how to come back from this, I said honestly. Then let's start where we are, she said. No more lies. No more fake accounts. Just what's left. If that's even anything. I didn't answer right away. We sat there as the TV murmured to no one and the air buzzed with everything we hadn't said. Eventually I stood, grabbed the blanket from the couch, and walked past her toward the guest room. Not to slam a door, not to punish her, just to be alone with the question echoing in my chest. Do I want to save something I no longer recognize? Or do I let it die? Just so I can finally breathe again. The next morning the house smelled like cinnamon. She was in the kitchen again. Same robe, hair tied up, hands moving on autopilot like the muscle memory of being us hadn't quite worn off. She was making French toast, the kind I liked, the kind she used to make when things were good. It felt like a reenactment. Morning, she said without turning around. Morning, I replied, though my voice came out thinner than I wanted. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter, watched her flip bread like we hadn't spent the last week dissecting the corpse of our marriage with polite silence and emotional scalpels. When she finally sat down, she pushed a plate toward me and said, I want to ask you something, and I need you to answer it like you don't owe me anything. I raised an eyebrow. Okay. If this had been the other way around, if you had made the fake account, tested me, tracked me, would you want forgiveness? That hit hard. Not because I hadn't considered the reversal, but because I had, many times. And every time the answer scared me. I don't know, I said honestly. I think if I did what you did, it would mean I didn't believe in us anymore. And if that's the case, then why even stay? She nodded slowly, absorbing that. I'm trying, she whispered, to believe again. In you. In myself. In us. I didn't respond. I just kept eating. Because I didn't have a blueprint for forgiveness. All I had were scattered parts of a trust that used to be whole. After breakfast, she asked if I wanted to go for a walk. Something normal. Something quiet. So we did. Through the neighborhood, past the park. Saying nothing about the storm still spinning between us. At one point, a couple passed by, laughing, holding hands. She glanced at them, then at me, and said, That used to be us, didn't it? Yeah, I said. But that couple didn't lie to each other. She didn't argue. When we got home, she went straight to our bedroom and came out with a stack of folded papers. My journal, she said, from the past few months. I don't expect you to read it now. I want you to see where my head's been. I want to give you what I never gave you before. Honesty. She placed it on the table like an offering, and then she walked away. I stared at the stack for a long time, fingers grazing the top page but not turning it. Part of me wanted to shred it. Another part, the quieter one, just wanted to understand, not her actions, but her fear. Because maybe if I could understand that, I could find the part of me that used to believe in second chances. The part that used to look at her and see home, not just hurt. But I wasn't there yet, not even close. I didn't touch the journal for 2 days. It sat on the table like a loaded weapon, not dangerous in appearance, but full of things I couldn't unread. Every time I walked past it, I felt like it was staring back at me, daring me to learn what I didn't want to know. On the third night, I finally opened it. Page 1 was dated 3 months ago. Her handwriting was careful, almost too neat, like she was trying to organize the chaos in her mind by force. Amanda says it's better to be suspicious than blindsided. She says men don't cheat because they're unhappy. They cheat because they think they won't get caught. I hate that I can't tell if I agree with her. I hate that I'm even writing this. I kept reading. Entry after entry painted a picture of a woman unraveling not from betrayal, but from the fear of betrayal. It was paranoia fed by secondhand heartbreak, by the ghost stories of other people's failed marriages. She wasn't angry. She was scared. Of being abandoned. Of being humiliated. Of being the last to know. Some entries broke me. He still brings me coffee without asking how I take it. Because he remembers. That should mean something. But what if it's muscle memory, not love? Sometimes I watch him laugh at his phone and imagine the worst. Then I hate myself for it. But I can't stop. By the end, I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. Exhausted by the slow corrosion of intimacy she'd chronicled so meticulously. She had taken our quiet contentment and misread it as emotional distance. She mistook stability for withdrawal, and instead of asking, she tested me. Built a fake woman because she thought her wasn't enough to get a real answer. That night, I sat at the kitchen table long after I finished reading, just staring at the final entry. If he ever reads this, I hope he knows I never stopped loving him. I just stopped believing I deserved him. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Because now I had to decide something I'd been avoiding from the moment I read the first fake message. Do I forgive her? Not just say the words, but actually mean them, live them, and more terrifying, if I do forgive her, what's left of us to save? Because you can glue something back together. But no matter how perfect this seems, the cracks always show. She found me at the kitchen table the next morning, still sitting in the same spot, the journal open in front of me. I must have looked wrecked. Unshaven, eyes red, half-empty mug clutched in my hands like it had answers. The light from the window was soft, gray, the kind of light that doesn't judge, just quietly waits. She didn't speak at first, just stood in the doorway in her oversized hoodie, arms crossed over her chest, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to walk any farther into the room. "I read it," I said without looking up. She nodded slowly. I figured. A long silence fell between us. Not tense like before, just heavy, careful, like both of us were waiting for the final crack in a glass that had already spiderwebbed in every direction. "You were spiraling," I said. "But instead of reaching for me, you reached for control." "I know," she whispered. "I see that now. I thought I was protecting myself. From the disappointment. From the shame of finding out too late." I finally met her eyes. "But I wasn't doing anything wrong." "I know," she said again. "I just didn't trust that. Not because of you. Because I've watched so many people around me lose everything when they ignored the signs. I didn't realize I was creating the signs myself." I leaned back in the chair, hands resting on the journal. "You didn't trust me," I said. "And you didn't trust that I'd still choose you, even if you just told me the truth. That's what hurts most. That you didn't think I'd love you enough to stay if things felt off." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I panicked. "Somewhere along the way I stopped feeling like your wife and started feeling like a placeholder, like you were still here out of habit. You should have told me that," I said. "That feeling, not tested it, not dressed it up in fake usernames and clever bait. Just said it." She nodded. "I was a coward." We both let that sit. No rush, no interruption. She was finally saying what needed to be said, and I was finally hearing it for what it was. Not an excuse, but an admission, a confession. Then she stepped closer. "I can't ask you to forget what I did," she said. "And I'm not asking for instant forgiveness. I just need to know if there's anything left, anything worth fighting for." I stared at her for a long time. And what I saw wasn't the manipulator, or the liar, or the woman who tried to trap me. It was the woman I married. Wounded, yes. Afraid, yes, but willing to stand there anyway and own it. "There is," I said at last. "But it's not what it used to be. What we had before, that trust, that certainty, it's gone. You burned it. What we build from here won't be a rebuild. It'll be something new, something slower, rougher. It'll hurt, and it'll take time." "I'm ready for that," she said. "Even if it takes years." "Good," I said, rising to my feet. "Because it probably will." She reached out her hand. Tentative, vulnerable. I took it. Not out of forgiveness. Not because everything was okay, but because I wanted to see if we could stand in the wreckage together, not apart. Choosing to stay doesn't mean the pain is gone. It doesn't mean the story resets. It means you're willing to write the next chapter with every scar exposed. And for the first time in a long time, the silence between us felt like room. Not for doubt, but for possibility.